Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 99 of PMI Live, Leading Leaders, How to Engage Your Organization in Change. One of the most key topics going without a doubt. My name is Rich Seddon, and I will be facilitating this afternoon's session. I'm joined by my colleague Warren Knight, who very shortly I will ask to introduce himself. Before we get to that, welcome to everyone joining us on the live streams on LinkedIn, on YouTube and Facebook. Great to have you with us. As the name suggests, PMI Live is a live experience. So if you do want to experience all the interactivity that we've got lined up for today, you need to be in the live session. So you can still register at pmi.co.uk/webinars and join us in the session. We're going to be using an interactive whiteboard session that Warren's got lined up for us in a little while. So if you want to take part in that, do hop on into the main session. On that note of interactivity, we will be using the chat for any observations, any comments you've got, and do keep the flow going as we progress through the session. Warren loves to be kept on his toes on a Friday afternoon. Nothing he likes better. So do help me in that mission. I just noticed, Warren, you've got the memo about white jumpers as well. We've come coordinated.
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. Good news. So we're not keeping on his toes with the comments. Ask questions using the Q&A functionality, so if you've got a specific question, I'll start a theme in there and we'll take it from there. So Warren, would you like to introduce yourself before taking us through what you're going to cover today?
Yeah, sure. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. So my name is Warren Knight, and I am a director consultant and head of PMI strategy practice. So what are we going to cover today? So we're actually, although very much the underlying theme for today is around the process of engagement. Where are we going to focus in for context? We're going to go right upstream to the beginnings of a change initiative, and we're going to talk about visioning. So we'll start with why is visioning so important and necessary in change? What makes an effective vision? Then how do we then engage the organization and socialize this vision? And then finally, we'll sum up with a few other points around effective communication in the context of change.
Brilliant. And Warren, when we were discussing the topic between ourselves and thinking about the context of this, one of the observations both of us made was in the traditional sense, visioning and particularly around strategy is around the corporate strategy level. So just to be very clear here, we're zooming down at the change program level and applying some of those key tools that are often used in the corporate strategy sense to your improvement program and even projects. Would you stretch it that far?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, this is not actually so much about the vision itself. This is about what the vision represents to engaging and aligning staff, and you know the principles that we're going to go through today are absolutely universal to all leaders, whether you are leading a small Kaizen event in your local team or department area, whether you're a head of a division or indeed a CEO. The founding principles of this are truly universal.
Okay, and I've just thought of something I'm going to ask you, but I will hold that thought for later in the discussion. It's a good one.
Brilliant. Okay, right. Well, let's get cracking. So, to start off with, then let's just look at a little bit of background. So, successful change, improvement initiatives, projects, call them what you will, they're successful primarily because they are able to generate really, really high levels of employee engagement. What do I mean by employee engagement? What I mean by that is an employee's both mental and emotional connection with the organization, the work, and the change initiative. So really quite profound connection. What we're talking about there.
Mm.
So how do these particular change initiatives go about that? How do they generate that high level of engagement? Well, there's broadly speaking two ways that we can go about doing this. We can look to motivate people through extrinsically, sorry. So that would be by encouraging people to get on board with the change through some kind of reward, or indeed some kind of threat, if you like, of you really need to get on board, and really pushing people to do that. That would be one way to do it. The other way to do it would be to tap into our intrinsic motivation, our inbuilt desire as human beings to take joy in bettering ourselves, to learn, to improve, and to have a sense that we're adding value.
Mm.
And for me, I suspect, well, I know that actually successful change initiatives are tapping primarily into the intrinsic motivation. When employees are sat there considering whether they're going to get on board or not, very little of that consideration is around their salary, quite frankly, be my thought.
Okay. So,
So
as we requested up front, keep your comments coming, your thoughts and takes on Warren's slides and content as we go through. It'd be great to hear from you.
yeah, indeed, it's all theory. So yeah, please add your thoughts and comments. So that's a backcloth. And again, so the whole presentation, it's about this process engagement, and what are we trying to accomplish through this process engagement? Of course, is to tap in to people's intrinsic motivation to want to improve, want to change. So before we start looking at that in detail through the lens of visioning, I'd very much like to get a sense of our audience's experiences, Rich. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a Miro exercise. And for the audience, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think back on your experiences of being on the receiving end of a change initiative. Okay. Is a bit of a harsh word, a victim of change, if you like. The organization wants to change something, and you have to respond to that. Okay.
There's no biases going on here.
No, indeed. So, and think back to those experiences. Hopefully you got some which are reasonably fresh. And what I'd like you to do is to identify where you were really inspired or excited, or somehow just personally compelled to get on board with that change initiative. What is it that the change team said, or what was it the change team done which influenced you? And then of course on the other side of that, if you've got experiences where in a sense you've kind of been put off, you've been de-energized, discouraged in some way from really, from a heart perspective, wanting to get on board with the change initiative, what were the change team's actions, or what did they say which caused you to feel like that?
Okay, so our glamorous assistant Neil, who's off screen, is going to share a link to Miro, which is the interactive whiteboard, in the chat right now. You should see that, and also in the chat is the password that you will need. We're going to jump on into Miro now, and it's always breathe a sigh of relief when we start seeing people active and cursors start jumping around. So Warren, once we've seen people have started to access, can you just give a very short intro to those who are not familiar with using Miro, quick description of the controls in terms of what they need to do. So we'll just wait for people to start jumping on in there.
Yep.
Phew, we can see the first ones in. That is always a massive relief.
Wonderful. So yes, indeed. And we've already got some. They're off. That's brilliant.
You just want to start your timer, Warren, by the way. So you've got 3 minutes, folks, for this. If you can see the questions. Whilst that's going on, Warren, for those who aren't familiar, just give a quick description of how to use Miro if they're not sure.
Sure. So I've started the timer. So if you are using a mouse today, then it is right click to drag. Okay, so hold down your right click and move your mouse around. And if it's if you're a touchpad, then essentially it's 2 fingers on your trackpad. To zoom in, scroll wheel on your mouse will do that. And if you're using a trackpad, then pinch in will zoom you in and out. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Warren. Talking of zooming out, it'd be great if you could, just to fit it all on screen.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
Brilliant.
try and do that. Having
everyone having just given instruction,
just demonstrating my my sharpened Miro skills there.
So Warren, there's 2 sides to this question. I mean, they're not strictly speaking opposing to each other, are they? Or would you fashion them that they are? These are 2 sides of the same coin, as sometimes the expression goes.
Yeah, I've thought about that long and hard actually when developing the questions. And I think there obviously are some things that if you do work well, but I think you can do things that would actually actively discourage people to get involved. Okay, so sometimes we de-energize people by the lack of action, okay, and the lack of engagement, but on occasions we actively do disengage people through the just the way that we go about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting you pick up on that theme of doing nothing can de-energize people. I had a conversation earlier in the week with a client around an improvement suggestion scheme, and my big caution whenever I hear improvement suggestion schemes suggested is make sure you have a robust feedback process defined. To avoid this stuff on the right about discouraging, because actually one of the worst things you can do is suggest a suggestion scheme unless you have a really robust means of A, feeding back, and B, being able to actually do something about it, because you can end up overwhelmed, can't you, with them?
Absolutely, and actually that's a really great point, Rich, and is an underlying point which you can only pack so much into these webinars. But this idea of incongruence, I think people are very sensitive to incongruence, where what they see in terms of leaders' action is different from how they're behaving.
Yeah.
And and so again, that idea of being congruent, that if whatever your messages are around your vision, it's so important that the leader then adopts those. That's been 3 minutes. Should we just give it another 30 seconds, do you think, Rich?
Yeah, just to wrap up. I mean, good grief, you lot can come again. What a fantastic contribution. I'm looking at this. Look at all this volume. Fantastic. So yeah, I can see that's starting to come together. We'll just give you a couple more seconds to finish some of the comments off. And yes, I can see some quite colourful contributions here. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Cool. So Warren, how do you want to handle this? Because I know you're going to affinitize it. Do you want us to have a look through first? Or are you going to affinitize first before we do this?
Let's see. Let's just see what the affinitizing tool will do to it. Okay. And I think then that gives us a chance to walk through them. So if you are finished, if I could ask you to click away from the post-it notes, please.
Step away from the post-its.
Hands down. The exam is finished.
It's like Bake Off. Come on, get these cakes up to the front.
Right. So I've still got a couple of people who are still clicked onto their post-it notes. If I could ask you to there we go.
Everyone's come to me for a moment.
Right. Oh, brilliant. That's great. So let's see what we can do here. Cluster objects. by keywords. Oh, let's try that again.
There we go. So what's just happened there, folks? If you look at the board, I'll now release you from my control. For those of you who are active, Warren's just selected all the post-its, and Miro automatically pulls affinitizes, effectively, for those of you who are familiar with the term affinity diagrams. It's pulled them into groups with common headings. In this case, it hashtags them. So should we have a look through what we've got there, Warren, from left to right?
Yep. So straight away, and it just happens to be on the left is about the benefits and the classic WIFM. Yeah, absolutely. I think is an essential point around change. This kind of idea of enlightened self-interest, and we'll come back to that. Yeah, yeah. What else have we got? Any that jumps out for you, Rich, as you go through?
Yeah, I think so. So I was looking over on the far right,
Okay.
picking up, not wanting to look for confirming evidence, obviously, but themes around communication really strong, and the juxtaposition of these two colours coming together has worked really well for me in here, because on most of them there are two perspectives on all, which I wasn't sure what we were going to get in this sense, because it's the first time we've asked this question live to an audience. So I often ask myself in this circumstance, are there any surprises here for me? I wouldn't particularly, but look at these themes around communication and about being listened to, communication in itself, frequent updates, etc. Maybe it's obvious, but if it is so obvious, how come it's here in pink?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perspectives welcome on that front.
Well, and we can learn so much from our own experiences. Absolutely. And again, a really big one for me here: focus on costs and value to the business rather than people. That's an interesting point.
Okay. Yeah.
Got to pick up on this one. Yeah, lots around communication, lots of words around involvement, early communication. I like that. Yeah, I think some really great things here, and it looks like we're gonna be able to kind of play to a number of these and really support them through the presentation.
Brilliant. Okay, it's fantastic. Thank you, folks, and thanks very much for the
Brilliant.
contribution
Thank
there.
you.
This stuff comes to life when you do get as involved as that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That board will remain open as well. So if you do want to view it in your own time, feel free.
Brilliant stuff. So we'll bring all of that feedback in as we go. So I mentioned that we're going to look at this through the lens of visioning. Okay, why visioning? Well, actually, a vision is necessary. It's a fantastic approach, tool, call it what you will, for helping to engender that intrinsic motivation. It has a more technical role as well. If we think about our organization as a system, and there's a definition for that in the bottom right hand corner, this idea that organizations are an interdependent network of components, people, machines, money, etc., would all have to work together to achieve a common aim. Then from a technical perspective, that vision is a fantastic way of making sure that everybody recognizes the direction of travel and is all pulling in the same direction. And importantly, what does that deliver? Well, it helps to ensure that we optimize the whole rather than suboptimize the parts. The problem here is with organizations and systems, if we're not all working in the same direction, we'll often look to do the best that we can, look to improve in one area, only to have a detrimental effect on another area.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, Warren, just picking up on your subtitle, which I think shouldn't go on the title slide before you came into this, where you've just I absolutely love that, where you've said visioning the destination of change. And it's so often misunderstood that visions can sometimes be perceived as hallucinations, actually. And this truly is the destination of change. And if you think about it in that context, I think it's so useful for framing what this is for in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a fundamental ingredient
Mm,
for change.
mm,
And I mean change not on a technical level. In a sense, that's almost the easy bit. Change on a social level.
yeah, yeah,
And you know, as we spoke about before, all leaders and anybody who is promoting and working to bring change about in the organization is a leader. And so again, all of this applies. So for me, I'm very passionate about the idea that all leaders should have a vision, and that the principles we're talking about are universal. What I would say, though, is going back to that idea of a system being a network of things that work together to a common aim. It's okay for us to have a vision around our improvement initiatives, our improvement project, but let's make sure, of course, that that vision is linked to the wider visions and goals of the organisation. Otherwise, it'd be fantastic if we got a vision, but we're likely to sub-optimize again.
yep, yeah. And don't be surprised if no one cares if that alignment isn't there.
Well, exactly, and again, of course, that's going to be played out in the next slides. So let's get to penning our vision. And what does a good one look like? Well, it is painting a picture, and it is about visualizing, if you like, a highly attractive, as it says here, future state. That future state is one of achievement, where the organization has achieved something, and there's value in that, okay, as a destination. But it is, as you mentioned earlier, it needs to be a destination. So therefore, it needs to be specific and not vague. Not one of these statements like, to be the best. That's more of a strap line. And therefore, because it's specific, you can actually, as the name suggests, you can actually see in your mind's eye. And you could imagine what it would look like if you'd reached the destination. And already that's important.
Yeah.
That's
I had
important.
one. I had one last week on a client program that was improve the dispatch process. I was like,
Wow.
when is that going to inspire anyone, and where's the destination with it?
Yeah.
To improve it. Well, so on and so forth. But
yeah, and because I can't visualize what would that actually look like to me.
Exactly.
And of course, and if I can't visualize it, it means I'm not internalizing it. And if I'm not internalizing it, then I'm not engaging with it. It's challenging and uninhibited. What do I mean by that? The vision should paint a destination where it becomes very clear very quickly for me that we just can't get there by doing what we've always done. That we've got to do something which is radically different. And that's really important for me, because we, as change leaders, we need to encourage transformation, not only the physical organization, but transformation of the thinking as well. We need to be encouraging generative learning. The word generative, we're generating new ideas, we're generating new approaches, something which is innovative, rather than adaptive learning, which is simply just refining what our current paradigm, our current theory. The uninhibited bit is about we have to look to the future and what's important, and it should that should be free of the challenges that we face today. Okay, because simply just and you almost so improving the process that you just mentioned, it's kind of focused upon getting away from the problems that we've got today.
Hmm.
And it seems like the same thing, but it's not. Moving to something which is different and attractive and of value is very different from a motivational point of view from running away from something which is unpleasant right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so all of this, I'm bigging this up to say it should be challenging, it should push us in our thought process, etc., etc. So it should be aspirational, but of course it should be achievable. Nobody's going to sign up for Mission Impossible. Creates tension for improvement. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this a little bit more as we go, and there's several ingredients to this, several parts of the equation, if you like. But one of them is having that sense of where's a better place that we're traveling towards, and that tension is related to energy. Okay, that intrinsic energy for change. And then finally, it should be able to be used as a guiding beacon. There's so many problems, so many challenges and issues within our organizations today because they're hugely complex. We're often operating in very dynamic environments. So whilst we're under the pressure of delivering today, the vision should represent the beacon, should give us that sense of a North Star and keep us on the right path, rather than just being blown about by the winds of current change, if you like. So we got the kind of more sort of technical elements there of the vision, from a change perspective. But of course, let's think more about now. How is this going to ensure that we generate the intrinsic motivation that we need, and that sense of enlightened self-interest? So I just want to pick up on that because I know we had a number of post-it notes around sort of benefits and what's in it for me. So the law of enlightened self-interest suggests that we kind of unconsciously want to do good for others because good will happen for us. And I think keep that in mind as we go through this. A good example of enlightened self-interest is the idea of giving somebody a present. When we give a present, particularly if it's cost us money, okay, that's caused us cost, hasn't it? Yes, but we get value back in terms of that feeling of joy that we get from giving somebody a gift. So that would be an example of enlightened self-interest. So when we think about our vision, how is it generating intrinsic motivation? How is it giving people a feeling of self-interest? Well, actually, for me, it's got to be customer and purpose centric. Okay, it's got to focus on the fundamental purpose of the organization, which is to create and satisfy customer needs. It has to make sense. What I mean by that, well, it just has to make sense. So if I think about the context in which the organization operates, I think about our customers, I can think to myself, yeah, that makes sense that we would be traveling in that direction. Because obviously, if it doesn't make sense, you're not going to buy into it.
Yeah, and you could swap that word out, couldn't you? Those words out for relatable as well, couldn't you? It's got to be meaningful to me.
Yes, indeed. And I think that relatable bit, I think, is something that we need to pay particular attention to when we come to the socializing bit.
Which is actually the argument that was made related to that improve the dispatch process. Yeah, but everyone will understand what it means. I was like, well, will they? Because do they understand how bad it is in the first place? And how are you going to inspire people and create this, as you say, this positive tension for the appetite for it when it's something as vague as that?
Well, indeed, and of course, and I know probably they understand, ultimately that we're improving it for customers' purposes, but that's not actually been stated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
So we can make an assumption, but I'd like it to hit me between the eyes that actually we're doing this for the benefit of our customers, and if we can give our customers a better experience, and we can create more value for the customers, then actually we're creating value for society in general. Okay. And also back to that enlightened self-interest. If I'm creating value for my customers, I get joy from that creation of value. And actually, I come across a BBC article not long ago, which seems to support my theories here. So this is an article about work life and searching for meaning at work. And if you just skim read that, you can see that the article is based upon some surveys done by McKinsey's, and that in blue there, 82% of employees believe it's important for their company to have a purpose, and that actually, ideally, that purpose is related to generating value in society. So that people get, that's intrinsic. That is intrinsic motivation right there. Okay, so if I feel my work is adding value, it's generating value for society, that makes me feel good. And the second part of that 70% feel like that sense of purpose drives, they perform better and feel more committed. And then finally, and we've kind of already touched upon this, but actually you're improving the dispatch process is a fantastic example of what we might call moving away from. We got an unpleasant situation with the dispatch process right now, and what we're doing is we're trying to get as far away from it as we possibly can. Okay. It's not very motivational, to be honest, particularly when we do improve the dispatch process, then our motivation to go any further just dries up. Whereas if we got a moving towards goal, there's something in the future and it's fantastic, and we're continuously heading towards that, the motivation is sustained much longer. I love the Hertzberg quote there. For me, that just really encapsulates it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a destination. It's easy to see that would be of value to go there. Okay, and we're going to get something from that. The final element for me of a good vision is that it's underpinned by values. What do I mean by values, though? And there's a definition there. It's those things that represent our truly deeply held beliefs and principles that guide us, guide our thinking, which of course guides our actions, which of course guides our behavior and the outcomes that we achieve. And again, this is incredibly important to have these values as part of our vision. Why is that? Well, we said earlier that we want in our current situation where there's lots of winds of change, we want that beacon to keep us on the right track. But a good vision will not tell us how we go about achieving it. Okay, because things will change, and the right theory for today may not be the right theory for tomorrow. But it does need to guide us. And it's the values that help do that, because when we need to make decisions, our values provide that overarching governance, if you like, to our decision making and therefore our actions. I mentioned earlier about the idea that the vision should be challenging and uninhibited. So that applies to the values as well. They should be future orientated. It's not necessarily articulating the values that you have right now.
Hmm.
It could be the values that you have right now, if they're the right values. Okay. But we do want to make sure that they are the values which will be required as we set off in our on our journey to the destination.
Hmm.
They must be well defined. Okay. And I think values can be notoriously difficult to ensure that everybody has exactly the right meaning of those. And again,
And
yeah,
interpretation and
and
execution. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of misalignment can come from that
Yeah.
misinterpretation. And again, of course, we'll pen some values as part of our initial vision, but expect to go through a strong process of refinement and definition as we go into the socializing stage. But wow, when we can express a vision that is underpinned by beliefs and values that really connect with our employees, are we going to get traction with this vision?
Yeah.
Okay. Picking up a point, and it's not on here, but again, with the values, that's one. The values, I think, is probably the most challenging part to kind of socialize within the organization, and probably take the longest. And that's because however much we define them, we need to see leaders behaving in that way. We need to know what good looks like. And that's where this incongruence thing comes in for me. So again, although they're company vision statements, okay, I've put them up here because I think some of them really echo the key underlying principles that I've just said, and those underlying principles are appropriate for departmental level change initiatives as well as for our organizational change initiatives. Ones that I'll be interested, Rich, in your views. What ones that I particularly like? I like this one: inspire the world with our innovative technologies, products and design, enrich people's lives and contribute to social prosperity by creating a new future. I love that. For me, got all the key ingredients that I'm looking for in that
Yeah,
one.
because what that doesn't say is, produce more stuff, which of course is necessary beneath it.
Yeah.
Really, really like that. And these are really relatable to improvement programs, and often people, improvement and quality programs for that matter, because you can lose sight of, other than make stuff better. It's really important to be able to motivate those that, no matter how you structure your programs, what is this destination that we're aiming for? You've got some here that's like putting smiles on the faces of everyone we touch, to make the best products on earth and to leave the world better than we found it. Highly debatable, that one, but yes,
Yeah.
it's the aspiration of them is the key thing, and they are relatable. But that one you started with, for me on this whole screen, that one you started with is probably the best here.
I think my second best is this one here. I like this one because it's about an internal value here of capitalizing upon everybody's unique experiences and obviously capabilities and competencies as well. And I really like that. It really plays for me to the value perspective. One that really turns me off though, and is related to some of the feedback we got on in the earlier exercise. This one down the bottom here in grey just leaves me a bit cold personally.
So to uphold standards while maintaining the leadership position when delivering superior customer service and falling asleep whilst reading. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, in a high, all I get from that is profit, profit, profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's completely unrelatable, isn't it? you put that at, you've always got to test these things about in the levels of your organization, and different, what does it mean to different people in with different jobs, different job roles, different hierarchies. But I'd challenge that one to be meaningful anywhere, really. I mean, to uphold our standards.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And is this inspiring me to get on board? No. Is the answer to that. So, okay, so we've crafted our vision. It's inspiring. So, why do we need to share it? Why do we need to socialize it? And I've used that word quite a lot. It's a word that I've noticed is becoming quite common now in my clients, and I love it actually. I think it's the right word for what we're talking about here. So I'm just gonna jump out and talk about a theory in psychology, and it's in Gestalt therapy, and it's called the Gestalt cycle of experience, sometimes called the cycle of change. And it's a model to describe how the process we go through of experiencing things. And in Gestalt, it's deemed that actually, as it says here, the most successful changes happen when we have full and effective engagement, okay, throughout the cycle of experience. So let's just quickly go through that cycle so that we can understand it. So the start point here, as you can see, I sense. So something happens and we get a sensation. Okay, we might feel something, we might hear something, we might see something, and it causes a sensation. And as that sensation becomes stronger, we start to focus upon whatever is causing the sensation, and we start to become aware of it, of the situation. As we start to explore and understand the situation in more detail, okay, we start to generate energy in that situation from that awareness. And remember, I talked about this tension for improvement. Well, for me, you could relate that to that energizing here. Okay. I imagine what I'll do. So I develop an action plan, if you like, and I take that action. And when I take that action, I'm making contact, I'm interacting with the situation. And through that interaction, if my actions are useful, I'm going to get benefit from that. And then I'm satisfied from that interaction and the benefit I've received, and then I withdraw. So I don't think it takes much for us to think, well, yeah, that seems about right. So if I'm really engaged in the situation at every step of the way, then I'm going to have a great experience. Okay. Yeah. Now, if we're not able to fully and effectively engage at any part of this, then our experiences are going to be less than optimal. Now, if I think back to most change programs I've seen, and I relate it to this model here, my question would be, most often, where are employees engaged in this cycle of experience? And again, our feedback from the earlier exercise suggests often it's at this point here. You're told to take action. This is what I want you to do, and you need to do it differently. And if we accept the model as being roughly true or useful, then we've had no chance to kind of develop a full awareness, to energize, to think through what our personal actions are. We've just been told what to do, and it's no wonder that people resist that. So let's keep that in mind in our approach to socialization. Because what we don't want is this picture on the top right, that the vision is just some kind of shiny poster that we just put up on the walls to cover over with blue tack. All right, we want this to in a sense have joint ownership, so we need to share it in order for it to be shared. In other words, in order that the organization can own it. So who do we need to share it with? Who do we need to engage? Well, let's think back to our idea of an organization as a system, interconnected components. Actually, possibly to some degree, in some way, shape, or form, pretty much every stakeholder who is part of this system that the change is related to, be it managers, operators, suppliers, could be internal, could be external. Now, having said all of that, of course, we've only got a finite amount of time and energy. So whilst everybody needs to be engaged to some degree, then obviously we need to invest the most effort with those that are most influential in the situation. That's kind of change management 101, I guess. So how do we go about it? Well, we don't do it from our desks. Okay, we get out and we actually physically engage. We actively communicate the vision to staff. We need to be providing insight. So why? What's the rationale behind this? What's the data? What are we seeing which has brought us to this conclusion that this is the right vision to take us into the future? And then cycle of experience. We need to give employees, not just say go and find some time, we need to make time for the employees to go and explore and internalize the vision from their own perspective. And there's a few questions here that just give a sense of what questions might I ask to help people start to internalize that.
I've started sharing some of those in the chat as well, Warren. So if anyone wants to put your responses against some of those, that'd be fantastic. We'd love to hear your take on this, really.
Wonderful, wonderful. Of course, encourage feedback. What do people like about it? What are people concerned about? And I hinted at this earlier. Be open to enhancements. Recognize that if you present a done deal, then it's unlikely that it's going to become a shared vision. All right, you have to be open to people wanting to, and you should be thrilled that people want to engage with and refine and enhance the words that you've come up with. That, of course, that doesn't mean to say that you can allow them to completely rewrite the vision and take us in a different direction. That's not their job. That's your job to create a vision. But build upon it, absolutely. And finally, I hope from how I've described it, I've done a good enough job of explaining that socialization is not just simply communicating at its basic level of sharing information. It's much more than that. It's about creating dialogue. It's about collaborating. It's about a to and a fro of sharing and building upon and learning from each other. And down in the bottom right hand corner there, it's through that dialogue and that collaboration that we build relationships, and relationships is fundamental to change. Okay, social change. So we're engaging, we're exploring with staff, we're helping them to go through a really effective and full cycle of experience. Part of that will actually back to this idea of tension for improvement. We've created a vision, but as the quote suggests, it might be a great destination, but people will still probably have in their minds this idea of, well, do I need to go there? This feels like a lot of effort. And so employees' level of dissatisfaction with the current situation is the other part of the equation that creates that tension for improvement and that intrinsic motivation, the energy for change. It won't just come from having a great vision. The other part of it, which must be there, is some sense of dissatisfaction with the current situation. Otherwise, why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you bother?
Yeah.
And so again, as leaders, we need to work with employees to help them generate the necessary data on the current situation. We need to create a very honest and open appreciation, and it needs to be from all key stakeholders' perspectives. So it needs to be from the customer's perspective, it needs to be from the organization's perspective, but not just the organization's perspective. Please, for goodness sake, if you expect people to just sign up just for the benefit of the organization, it's not going to happen. And of course, it needs to be from the employee's perspective. So this is another great area of potential for involvement and engagement. One last thing on this slide before we just wrap up with some points. And it's about generating one's own data. So the voice of the customer is going to be key at this stage. So I could, as a leader, I could give employees, some voice of the customer information, some quotes that customers have made that I've collected on their behalf. Yeah, that would be good. Or even better would be to engage them in a workshop to get them thinking about their contact with their customers and put themselves in their customers' shoes. Even better. Or even better still, actually set up an initiative and actually enable staff to go and talk to their customers live in an organized fashion. Wow, that data would be of much more use than just handing them data. Some final parts just around sort of communication. I'm sure there's some of you out there as change leaders who are saying, yeah, brilliant, this is great in theory, but boy, I don't have this much time available to me. So when time is short, but the need for communication is great, it's easy to seek out what we consider to be efficient methods, town halls, things like that. Okay, or some form of cascade communication. But remember, these are not effective on their own. We need to give people the time to internalize. We need to create dialogue, okay? And we can't do that, from afar. We need to engage with people. Communication and change is not a one-time deal. I like to think about our communication process is the ebb and flow of the tides. We're always coming out of our project team, to engage, to find out what's the latest, to get feedback on where we are. We bring that in, we make sense of that, we go back out again, and the tides keep happening, and so should our communication. In bigger change initiatives, seek out champions at all levels of the organization. They don't have to be senior managers. There need to be some. It can be operators as well. There need to be some of those. But please make sure that you have made them into champions. You've given them the support necessary for them to be able to go out and champion the cause.
You mean other than just the job title? Good grief, Warren Knight! What a revolutionary
thought.
Well,
that might, yeah, you seem positive. Why do you go and talk to these people on our behalf? They need preparation. Try and create as much direct contact as you can. And if you're going to use management teams to help cascade, and help the dialogue along. Make sure that you recognize that they have to go through their own change process, and to a certain point they will also be a victim of this change, and so they need that time to internalize before they can help others to do that.
Right, fantastic.
So final points then: get a clear destination. Make sure that that destination speaks volumes in terms of value creation. Underpin it with values that will guide your approach both today and tomorrow. Enter into dialogue to socialize. And whatever you do, however much time you've planned, times it by 10. Give people the time to get on board with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Warren. So we're using Copilot today. I have just put the summary of the Copilot key points in there, as ever with AI generated content. Check it for accuracy, folks. So Warren, if you could jump onto the next slide for me, that'd be fantastic. Sure. So those of you who are regular followers will know that we've got 3 podcasts available, 2 of which are on the two podcasts available, both of which are on the screen. That's what I meant to say. So we've got this month's Leading for Business Excellence with Tony Thielen. Great podcast to listen to. You can find them in the Knowledge Hub. And then we've got someone you might be familiar with here. Also with 2 Uncommon Sense podcasts. They're around 15 minutes long. You're hogging the screen this month.
I do know what, I didn't even recognize myself. Right?
Jump to the next slide for me, Warren. That'd be fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can do a big reveal today. We are launching, as part of our 40th anniversary celebrations, the Goals to Results Conference. Save the date. You can register interest by scanning that QR code. It's the 25th of September at the University of Warwick. We will be having roundtables, workshops, panel discussions, guest speakers, case studies, examples, success stories, all things improvement. In other words, our strapline for the event, and you can tell how super excited I am about this, is learn, share, and thrive. We've never done one of these. We're aiming to invite as many people as we can. If you scan that code now, it'll get you to fill in a form, and we'll have you on the list to let you know as soon as the further details are announced. But for now, save that date, the 25th of September. We're going to throw everything we've got at it. It should be a fantastic one. And finally, Warren, one more slide. Of course, it's next month. Top AI tools for improvement. Join myself and my colleague, Anthony Richardson, for further deep dives into specific tools this time on AI for improvement. Friday, the 26th of April. You can register at pmi.co.uk/webinars. So all that remains to say, folks, is thank you so much for joining us. It's our pleasure and privilege to deliver these to you, and thank you very much for joining us each and every time. So from Warren and myself and everyone at PMI, thank you very much. Have a great one.
Cheers.